Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to create this little easel card. It's a mini card and it's going to have a little shaker pocket in it. What I'm using is going to be the Art Impressions mini scallop frame dies, which are designed to go with your watercolor series. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different with it by adding a shaker element inside the frame rather than sliding my image in the frame. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. But to get started, let's grab the focal image. We're using the Halloween Magic set from Art Impressions. I'm going to grab that little witch with her cat, which is just so cute. And later on, we'll grab that sentiment that says, "Too cute to spook." Let's get started with some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. I've got my Versafine Onyx black ink. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that just using my Mini Misty stamp positioner and my Stampendable stamp press to press that out. I'm starting off with Blossom Pink, Warm Gray number 6, and Light Gray. And these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and these are a water-based pen. I added a little pink to the cheeks, and then we'll blend that out a little bit more at the end. I added the light gray and the warm gray number 6, and then we'll do some blending. So we're going to be using the mini scallop frame dies, but there's also a mini rectangle frame die set. And again, these are designed to go with your watercolor series. So each of these include the element that you need to create this little insert, this little pocket. And they both include the easel for the back of your little pocket frame. And then for the mini rectangle frame die set, you get rectangles that you can cut out of your opening. You get a little banner die and you get the easel die. And then for the one that we're using today, you get ovals to cut out that opening. You also get a small circle die, a banner die, and that same easel die. So you can mix and match these little frame dies. Let's go ahead and finish up the little cat. I'll add a little bit of that blossom pink to the feet as well. And then I'm switching to sand and brown to do her hair. The sand has a little bit of a reddish tint, as does the brown. So I thought it would be a nice mix of colors to give us kind of a red-headed look, but not too bright. You could certainly give her some purple hair or pink hair, or whatever you want to do. I thought I'd kind of stick with the colors that we're going to be adding to this little frame later on, which would be some oranges, browns, blacks, purples, and then I'm going to add a little splash of the bright green just to kind of give it a little bit more color. And here's the green that I'm talking about. I've got light green and deep green, and we're going to create that hat in those two colors, and that'll just be a really nice pop of color. And then I'll put a little bit of that color on her shoes as well. And we're going to be using some Sequinz that will also have that same combination of colors. So we'll add a little bit of more shadowing there. And then I'll quickly color in her shoes. Now for her dress, I wanted to go with the purple. So I'm using light violet and deep violet. And I'll start off with that lighter color, and then we'll add some of the deep violet. It was a little bit dark, so it did take a little bit of blending on that. I maybe should have gone a shade lighter than the deep violet, but in the end I really liked how it was a nice highlight on the front of her dress. But you may want to go with a shade closer to the light violet if you want to get a little bit easier blending. But it worked out in the end, so I wasn't too worried about it. I'm going to add a little bit more of the light violet and then bring in some more of those shadows. And I'll keep adding to that. You could use a water brush here as well, if you prefer that. And I'm also listing the colors we're using in the upper left-hand corner as we're going along. And I'm using a blender pen, the Zig blender pen, to do all of my blending. So here you can see where I'm coming in with a little bit more of that darker color. And then let's do the sleeve on her dress. Now we're going to be adding some polka dots to her dress, and so we'll add a little bit more interest that way. I've got the flesh color for her face, her arms, and her legs. And I did add a little touch of that blossom pink to her cheek, just on one side there. Now with orange and scarlet red, I'm going to color in the little banner on the hat, the little strip there on the hat. And I did decide to come in with some deep red. I didn't think I had quite enough of a shadow, so I added that deep red. And here's where I'm going to grab a purple gel pen and add these little polka dots. And these gel pens, I don't know, lately I've been kind of hooked on adding some interest with these, either stripes or dots, and it gives it kind of a satiny look. So I added those little dots, and I really thought that finished it off. Now for cutting, I'm using a pair of detail scissors, and I'll cut this out, and I am going to leave a little white border all the way around. Now here's the mini scallop frame die set that I was talking about. So you get that main die that cuts the pocket, and then you get ovals that you can cut out. You get a little circle, and see you get 3 sizes of the ovals, this circle die, then you get the little easel die, and a banner. So I'm going to die cut the base of our little frame card, and I've got some Halloween Season 2 paper pack, and I'm going to select that one that has the spider webs, and there's spider webs on both sides. These are double-sided papers. They're 6 by 6 inches. So we're going to die cut the base of the card out of the spider webs. And then for the inside, when you're looking into that frame, I'm going to use that pattern paper from that same set. And then I'm going to grab the largest oval die and the second largest one. The largest one will be to cut those little words, and then the second largest one will be to cut the opening out of our frame card. I've got some post-it tape. I'm going to tape this down nice and straight, and we'll run that through the die cutting machine. And then let's go ahead and run this panel through as well. And we might as well just die cut that oval at the same time. You could certainly do these separately, but I'm going to line that up, and we'll die cut the oval out of that base at the same exact time. So now that we have this done, we can set aside the spider webs, and this one is going to go on the inside. Now you could have those lighter spider webs showing through. Either way would work just fine. Again, I just wanted to bring in some of the purples and oranges, so that's why I'm inserting the words in there. And that says boo, scary, trick or treat, things like that, spooky. So it's kind of a cute little addition to the inside. So now I folded on the score lines. There's 2 score lines. And I'm going to open this back up and place plenty of the 1/4 inch double-sided tape around that opening, because we're going to be placing a piece of acetate behind this little window that we've created. I cut down a piece of acetate to fit on this front panel, and we'll place that down. And that tape will hold it nice and securely in place. Now you can see we have that pretty window. And then let's go ahead and glue this in. So I'm going to place plenty of glue on the back of this, and I'm going to use my finger just to make sure I have it right up to the edge, because our shaker elements are going to be in here, and I don't want them to get stuck behind this little oval. So I'm going to lay this down, face down, and then all I need to do is close this up, and then that will pick up that oval and glue it exactly in place, so it'll be lined up perfectly. I just need a little bit more of that 1/4 inch double-sided tape right along that tab. I'm going to cut away any excess, and that's how we'll close up this little frame. But first we want to create our shaker element. So I'm going to use some 1/8 inch double-sided foam strips, and I'm just going to cut these down, and we're going to go all around that opening. Now when you're creating a shaker pocket, you want to make sure that your foam tape is edge to edge. You don't want any of your little shaker bits to escape, so you want to make sure you go right up to the edge. So you're going to create a little pocket, and I'm using the 1/8 inch foam strips. They're not quite as dimensional as some of the other tapes. I didn't want too much dimension in inside this little frame. I didn't want it to get too bulky. So by using these, I get that pocket area that I need, but it's not too thick. So again, these are edge to edge, and I'm just double checking that. And you can see that strip of tape that is on the left-hand side is moved in about the 1/4 of an inch, and that is so that little tab right there will fit into that space. And that's how that's going to close up. So you want to make sure that foam strip is off to the right a little bit so that you have room to close up your card. And now I'm using my anti-static powder, and I'm just placing some on the inside of that foam tape so that my little shaker bits don't stick to the edges. I've got my Nuvo Surface Sweep brush. It's a really soft brush, and I'm just brushing away any of that excess anti-static. I've got my dual tip spoon and my Buttons Galore and More Scary Fun Sequinz. I love these. They're so pretty. And I'm going to put enough in here. I don't want to completely fill it. And I do want to make sure that these are laying perfectly flat. So I am using my tweezers just to make sure these are nice and flat so that they're not too bulky. And then I'm going to remove the backing from the foam tape, and then I'll remove the backing from the tape along that tab. So I can go ahead and close this up. And I'm just making sure that tab is folded in. You can line that up, press that down, and then you do want to make sure you press down really well. Again, making sure those little shaker pieces are stuck in between. You don't want any of those popping out. So now we have our little shaker element, and I just love this. It's so much fun. And then let's create the easel for the back. So I'm going back to that same paper. I'm going to tape that easel die down with a little bit of Post-it tape, and we'll go ahead and run that through the die cutting machine. It has 2 score lines on it. Those are created when you die cut it. I'm just folding on those score lines, pressing it out with the bone folder, and then this will sit right on the back of our frame. I'm going to set that aside just for a second while we add this little girl. And I've got some 3D foam squares. I've placed plenty of those along the back. I'm using my Cricut weeding tool just to remove that backing. And then we'll put her on the front of this frame. And you will see that a little bit of her hat is sticking up over the top, so you want to make sure you don't put any foam tape there. And this finished frame measures about 3.5 inches by about 2 3/4 inch. And now we can go ahead and attach the easel, going back to that same 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Again, this is a nice strong tape, and then we can go ahead and attach this to the back of the card. I'm just going to center it. Let's remove that backing. And this makes a nice little element for this. It's really cute. It makes it kind of like a little decoration that the person can place on their desk. This would be great for teachers. They could put it on their desk. And you could always do that little easel in a lighter color so that you can sign back there. And then let's use our white gel pen and add a few highlights here and there just to make everything pop a little bit better. And just a quick reminder that all the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below, as well as on my blog. And then I'll take my dies. These are the web dies, again from Art Impressions. And it has so many web dies on there. It's really hard to choose. But I did decide to grab this one, and I'm going to die cut it twice out of some black 100-pound cardstock. And I'll glue these two together just to give this a little bit more substance. And then I've got the little spider from that same set, and I die cut 2 of those as well, and I glued those together. So let's go ahead and attach this. We'll have it sort of hanging over that frame just a little bit. And then we glued 2 of those spiders together, and we can place this down as well. You can place this anywhere you like. I'm going to tuck it right here. And then I'll just let that sit and dry. I've got my Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. I'm adding clear glitter to the entire spider web and the little spider. And I'll add a little bit to the banner on her hat. But when I did that, it bled a little bit. So you do want to be careful because that's a water-based pen. And we colored with water-based as well. So I got a little bleeding, but I'm going to show you how I fixed that. So I took my blender pen and I'm picking up that color. You can see me removing it. And you want to scribble it off onto your scrap paper until you've removed most of it. And then I'm going to take my white gel pen and go right over the top. And you'll never even know that I had that little mistake there. Now I'll use that same white gel pen to add a few highlights to my spider web. And a couple little dots for the eyes on the spider. And for a last finishing touch, I thought I would grab the Buttons Galore and More Jewelz. These are the rainbow jewels, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. And I thought it would be pretty to put a little jewel right in the center of the spider web. So I'm using my Marvy Jewel Picker and the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive to place that down. All I want to do now is add a sentiment to this. I thought it needed something down in the bottom left-hand corner. So I'm going to go back to that scallop frame die set, and I'm going to grab that little banner die, and I'm going back to the Halloween Magic stamp set, and we'll grab that sentiment, Too Cute to Spook. I've got some more of that black 100-pound cardstock. We're going to go ahead and stamp this using the Versamark Watermark Ink Pad, and I'll just add a little bit of that anti-static powder to this paper before I do my stamping. I don't want any of that white powder to stick. And then we can go ahead and ink this up. And I will stamp this a couple times. I like to just stamp it lightly and then stamp it again. For the embossing powder, we're going to be using the Ranger Super Fine Detail White Embossing Powder so that it will pick up all the detail of our stamp sentiment. And I'm just going to sprinkle that on. We'll just tap away any excess. And now we can go ahead and heat set this. If you do have any extra of the powder on your paper, you can just use a brush and brush that away before you do your embossing. So I want this sentiment to be off to the right-hand side of that banner. We're going to be cutting away that excess. So let's tape that down, and we'll run that through the die cutting machine. And I'm using that Spellbinder Scout machine to do that. And then I've got that Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive. We'll attach this to some white cardstock. I wanted to have a little white border around the edges. So I'm using my detail scissors and my paper trimmer to trim this up. Let's trim away the excess on the right hand side, and then again I use my detail scissors to cut around that little V section of the banner. And then I did decide it was still just a little bit too long, so I'm using my Tim Holtz scissors to cut away some of that excess. And I still thought I needed to trim a little bit more off. So that's going to sit down here on the left hand side of our frame. So let's glue that down and let that dry. Here's our finished project, and she is just so cute. Got that little shaker element back there. So again, these little pockets are great for any of your images. You can slide down inside there, a frame for a photo or whatever you like. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.